Okay, now that I've taught you a little bit about how the quadratic formula works, you can use it to find the zeros of a quadratic equation. I wanted to show you that you can, pardon me, you can use the quadratic formula to solve any equation really that has an x squared term. Like for instance this one, which looks pretty complicated. But the first step really is to make one side equal to 0, because then you're just finding the zeros. And then you can use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to kind of zero out the whole right-hand side of this equation. I'm going to subtract 2x from each side, or 2x squared from each side, to zero that out. I'm going to add x to each side, because I can zero that out, and I'll add 24 to each side. And there is no non-x term here on the left, and so I've zeroed out the entire right-hand side, but 4x squared minus 2x squared, that's 2x squared. Negative 20 plus 1 is negative 19x, and then I have a plus 24, and that whole thing equals 0. So I just rearranged this equation, and I set it equal to 0, and now, since the quadratic formula just finds zeros, then I can start plugging in terms. So the a term is 2, the b term looks like negative 19, that seems ugly, and then the c term is 24, but let's see if we can find the zeros. Okay. So, I need to do negative b, but I do negative 19, plus or minus the square root of b squared, negative 19 squared, minus 4 times 2 times 24. And I need to do that whole thing divided by 2a, 2 times 2. Okay, so let's kind of make this a little bit easier. Let's see if this works out. Negative 19 is positive 19, plus or minus the square root of. Now, 19 to the second power is 361. I did that math earlier. And 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 times 24 is 192. And then 2 times 2 is 4. So now I've made it a little bit simpler. 361 minus 192 is this 169. Okay, so now I've got it a little bit simpler, and hey, luckily 169 is actually 13 to the second power. So I know that the solutions to this equation would be a 19 plus 13 divided by 4. It would also be 19 minus 13 divided by 4. Let's see what those two solutions are. 19 and 13 is 32 divided by 4, which is 8. And 19 minus 13 is 6 divided by 4, which is 3/2 when I reduce each fraction. So those are my solutions. Let's do one more example. This one's a little different. So I have 18x minus 40 equals 3x squared. I'm just going to subtract 3x squared from each side. And now I have negative 3x squared plus 18x minus 40 equals 0. Again, I just wanted to manipulate the equation so that I have one side is equal to 0. Now I'm going to use that quadratic formula again. A is negative 3, B is positive 18, and C is negative 40. And let's see what our solutions are. So again, negative b, so negative 18 plus or minus the square root of 18 squared minus 4 times negative 3 times negative 40, all divided by 2 times negative 3. Let's simplify a little bit. Let's see, negative 18 plus or minus 18 to the second power is, well, darn it, I should have had this ready. 18 times 18 is 324. 324, and let's see here, 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 40 is 480, but I have a negative times a negative times another negative, so I'm actually subtracting 480. Because negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12, times negative 40 is negative 480. And do you notice what happens here? 324 minus 480 is, that would be 56. So I have negative 18 plus or minus the square root of negative 156. But I can't square root negative numbers. Look at that. If that number under the square root ends up being negative, you know what this is? This is a problem with no solutions. Those come up. So now practice those problems on today's assignment and come back tomorrow.